Hey everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. Tonight, my guest is Katelynn. You might know her on Instagram and TikTok as Auntie Katie or Auntie Katie. Either one. You might know her as both. She is a mom of 5 and an educator, and she's got her sights set on going back to school and becoming a therapist for LGBT youth. Welcome to the show, Katie. Hello.
Hey everyone.
How are you doing today?
I am doing today pretty good. I've been off my hormones for a while, so I'm a little emotional, but today is actually a good day. So
Awesome.
I've been excited about tonight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here. This is great.
Once we get past the initial set of questions and the break, you can fire up Twitch and watch the chat along. We just don't like it to distract, or sometimes we get people that drop in and say crappy things, and we don't want it to affect our guests. So that's why we have that rule.
I actually really appreciate that, but I kind of live for the trolls, if I'm being honest. It's a lifestyle that we could get into this, but like back when I was undercover behind enemy lines, like I was in a lot of groups. I was a good person. I wasn't a nice person. So I learned a lot of things. I learned their tactics, and I know how they troll. So I'm good with it. I kind of feel like I've learned like counterintelligence or something. Whenever we're live, like it's great because they try to think like they'll be like, oh yeah, well, identify as a shark. I'm like, okay, well, that's wonderful, shark. What pronouns would you like? And they're like, I'm not really a shark. And be like, okay, well, then what do you want me to address you as? And they'd be like, well, I'm a human. And be like, okay, well, human. And they're like, wait, what the fuck is happening? You're like, what do you want me to do? You want me to? I will accept you. I will accept you here. And I think that's what messes them up most is when you like just play into their absurdity, and you're like, okay. And then they get like, wait, why are you doing this? Like, this is weird.
Let's get into your story. Let's start out with the easy one. For the record, how do you identify?
I identify as a transgender woman. My pronouns are she, they, and the they has been more recent because I've been experiencing what I call gender disassociation. I don't know what the actual term. That might actually be what it's called. I don't know. But it's moments where I've just kind of been sitting and like I will just kind of like come to and realize, be like, I've been existing genderlessly for like 45 minutes, just existing in this world. There's no gender. It's just nothing in particular. And it's been a weird, like, this is kind of new. So slowly I've been kind of asking people to use they every once in a while, and they did. And I realized, like, it works. So I identify as a woman. I'm a trans woman. Okay. But pronouns are she, they. Because sometimes, like maybe like 10%, I'm just nothing.
You're reserving the right to just be.
Oh, that's it. I reserve the right to just be. Oh my God, that's really good. That's what I'm going to go with. 90% of the time I'm a woman, 10% of the time I reserve the right to just be.
I love that. I love that sentiment for all of us. That's a great thing for us to adapt.
That's really good. I have to write that down. I'm a sucker for quotes. I like a good feel-good quote, and that's a really good one.
Somebody clip that real quick. All right. Yes. So then jumping into your actual story, I like to start with my favorite question, which is, how did you choose your name?
Okay, so back before my transition, I refer to it as when I was undercover. So if I just like randomly throw like back when I was undercover and it sounds out of place, that's what's going on. Back when I was undercover, one of my friends who I've known for a great many years, I had a lot of anxiety, and it got to the point that it was so bad that like I couldn't tell sometimes if it was me having these thoughts or my anxiety was causing me to have these thoughts. So we named my anxiety Todd, because in my head Todd was like the douchiest dude bro fraternity guy name, and I always thought like, my anxiety is being like really shitty. You're being like kind of a douche bro right now, right? So I was like, I name it Todd. And so anytime I'd be like, hey, I don't know if this is like if you're ignoring me or if Todd is making me think that. And so it kind of gave a point where like I could ask in a sense that didn't make it feel like I was being all needy and weird, but they knew I was asking because of my anxiety. Like everyone around me, even my my best friend, my wife, my ex-wife. Well, after I started smoking medical marijuana because it became legal in Oklahoma, my anxiety just like just disappeared. Like it was just like all but went away. And this is before I noticed what was going on, but I was joking with my friend Nikki. I was telling them, I said, it's weird because my brain, like Todd has like been evicted, like he's gone. but he's been replaced. And this is before I knew I was trans, before I was even gender fluid, before anything. This was still when I thought like I was a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would joke though, because they and I were like always in the big groups together, and it was like we were the basic white bitches. Like even whenever I was a guy, I was a basic bitch because I like pumpkin lattes, spice shit. You know, like that was the whole thing. So I told him, I said, you know, it's like my brain has been replaced by like this girl who just like graduated high school and she went off to college and she's going to discover who she is and blah, blah, blah. And her name is, of course, Katelynn or something. And right. And I went this whole big joke. And so we just went with it and it never got brought up again. But then after I transitioned, I was like, whoa, wait. Like, how did I know? Like, my brain knew right then. That was when my brain was like, look, I'm trying to fucking tell you right now. And it still took me like 6 months before I was like, oh, hold on. So when I finally chose my name, I thought, what better name than the one that my brain used as a joke to be like, look, I'm trying to fucking tell you. So I went with Katelynn. But my dead name, my original middle name was Lynn, like Lynn. So I thought, why not Kate, Lynn? So Katelynn. So I still incorporated a part of who I used to be because it was a family thing, and my mom really wanted me to have that middle name. And so I kind of kept it around, just put it in my first name. That's it.
That's a great story. And I love, I love the fact that we get to, that's why I love this question, is we get to choose our identity. We get to choose how we represent ourselves. You know, we've, people who get to live in their true gender their whole life, like it just develops slowly over time. And it's like this kind of quick change process. We go through a second puberty and all these things. And so, you know, those things that you get to choose to own your own identity are wonderful. And I love the stories behind it. That's why it's one of my favorite questions.
I even espouse the benefits to cisgender people. Like one of the people who is in the chat here, Chaotic Neutral, she like today was talking about how like she kind of had expressed interest in changing her name for no other reason than just changing her name.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's great because like I always told my kids, like, you know, like me and my best friend have always told our kids that the name that we gave you was a gift. Like I got this from somewhere, I don't remember where, but it was like a quote somewhere. But it was like the name that we gave you is a gift. Like if you want to keep it, that's great, but you're not expected to keep it. If you want to choose your own identity, you do that. Like I gave it to you because it meant something to me. If it means nothing to you, then find something that means something to you. So, I tell even cisgender people like, don't just stick with your name. If you be you, pick your name. Like you know who you are.
So you mentioned that conversation where you threw out the Katelynn name and you had that joke, and then it took a while before you realized that you were trans and that name was going to be the one that would fit for you. What was it in that process, in that time period, that brought about the realization that you were trans? How did you come to that? And then, you know, after that, how did you learn to accept that?
So that was kind of a tiered step process. The first, like I started after my anxiety was gone and I had kind of like started exploring like oh, there's so much. My brain can like focus on so many different things now. Like once the anxiety was gone, I could focus on all sorts of different things about who I am. And one of them, I started thinking like I had met this girl Angie, and I remember she came through the door. Like it was my friends were having a wedding at my house, and they were having a friend officiate and all that stuff. But it was like a Halloween wedding, so we were all dressed up. And Angie had come in dressed in as like this referee with like a short skirt. And it was the first time in my life that I saw a woman, and I didn't say in my head. I was like, my head was like, I want to be her. And then I stopped. I'm like, no, I want to be with her. No, wait, no, I want to be her.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like, I'm like, no, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, what is happening right now? And so because of that, I went through this like I was gender fluid phase of like okay, so like there's days that I feel very feminine, there's days that I feel very masculine, and then it just kind of turned into like a lot more days of feeling very feminine until one day I was my best friend at the time, like she was having a hard time with all of it, and I get it because she's not attracted to women, and so feminine presenting people, she was not very like, she's like, you know, on the days that you're like presenting feminine, you know, I don't feel very attracted to you. And I was like, okay, I get it, you know. And so I started getting to like, well, now we're gonna get divorced, like, so I'm just gonna stop. And so I went like 3 days without presenting feminine in any manner. I went to work every day, like with my guy's clothes on, and it was a Friday, and I just remember thinking like, I don't want to kill myself, but maybe if I'm driving home and someone just like drives their car into me and I died, it wouldn't be so bad. And so I started kind of just like having this weird reminiscing type of moment where I went through my photos on my phone and I saw a picture of me like a week earlier where I had like done my hair all over and my makeup was done and I had this nice like this Slytherin tie kind of thing going on, and I looked so pretty, and I just started crying at my work desk. I'm like, oh, hold on, no, I see what's happening here. Like, I can't go back now. And that was the moment that I realized I was a woman. The next day, on that Saturday, I was laying in bed with my best friend. Like, we were so many times. She had her head on my chest, and my heart was just like just racing so fast. I'm like, I have to say something. I have to say something. I have to say something. And she could feel it. She sat up. She goes, "What's wrong?" Because we'd been together at this point. Like, we've known each other for this point like 11 years, 10 years. We're going in 11 years. And so she knows me. And so she was like, she lifted her head, looked at me, and goes, "What's wrong?" And I could have totally handled this better, but I just blurted out. I was like, "I'm a woman," and it was quite a thing. We both could have handled it differently. I probably could have told her differently, and the way she reacted could have been differently. But ultimately, I think that we got everything we needed to cathartically and primally and raging out of the way. And now we are like the best friends. Like, I still consider her my soulmate. Just, she's actually, because of this, I've learned that I don't think soulmate means romantic. I think a soulmate can be someone platonic. And I think that that's what she and I were supposed to have been this entire time. And I think that it works. Like, we parent well together. We have wonderful kids. She's a wonderful human being. And I couldn't ask for a better friend, you know?
We talked previously about that point where you came out, and then you can see the breadcrumbs, the trail of it before from your past. What were some of those things that you were able to trace back to your youth that should have been clues earlier?
So, oh God, this is where I'm about to get in trouble. When I was a little girl, and I always say it like that way because I've always been a girl. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, so when you were a little boy, I'm like, no, I was never a boy. I was just always a little girl. And that's the problem, is that I needed to be a little girl. I needed to play with the dolls. I needed to have the cute clothing. I needed to have the moments of being able to be vulnerable in a toxically masculine world where I could cry without being told. Girls cry, like boys don't cry. Just all those things that every time I act, like if I wanted, my parents used to, like, as a joke to make us like freak out, tell me and my brother that they were going to buy us Barbie dolls for Christmas because y'all are not acting like boys. And it would be, but I just remember thinking like, okay, so buy me the Barbie dolls, and they never would. And I like, so it's things like that I'm like, look, like, I used to play with my Ninja Turtles. I used to get He-Man and Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joes, and my sister would get all the Barbies, and so we would play together. I would get to play with like the boys' toys, but I was playing more or less. I was playing house with my sister, playing Barbie. Every time it just seems like I tried to express like my feminine, my girly side, And I'm sorry for anyone watching. This is about to get violent, but like, I would get a beat out of me. It was not a fun childhood. I mean, it was a very toxically masculine environment growing up, very much to the point that, and I know that everyone thinks I'm always joking when I say this, but I got in trouble one time. I got punched in the gut for folding my pants like a woman. And you're thinking, how do you fold your pants like a woman? How does a woman fold her pants?
Yeah.
Well, I should have brought a pair with me, but so how you have your back pockets? If you fold the back pockets to touch each other, that's how a man folds his pants, because it makes the crotch stick out so that your junk has place to go. Okay. If you fold the front pockets together, you pull in the front pocket backwards, which you're hiding all the pocket because a woman doesn't have junk, so you don't fold your pants that way. Shit like that. Like, I was told that basically being a woman, being a girl, being female was wrong, was a bad thing, and so I just hid it. And so it's little things like that I look back on then I'm like, you know, I tried to fucking say something. And my mom, I mean, she never beat me. My mom never beat me. Okay, that's about to be a weird conversation. My mom never hit me ever once. She bought me a doll whenever I was 2, and I remember a lot of pictures growing up where I feel like the trade-off for me getting a doll was that my dad also bought me this weird plastic belt of like 6-shooter guns. Like, oh, if she's gonna get a doll, she's also getting some guns because guns are manly, and I'm like, fucking really? Like, you know, it's my dad was very the big driver, I think, mostly in how I ended up hiding who I was for so long.
Mm-hmm.
After I transitioned, he and I tried to reconnect because up until the age of 15, actually, he stopped beating me when I was 13 because my brother stood up to him finally. But at 15, he kicked us out of the house and I moved in with my mom. And we stopped talking pretty much after that. But I had a therapy session where I kind of had an insight into some stuff about like maybe what he was experiencing. So I contacted him. We got to go and know each other again. We bonded over knives and blacksmithing and things like that. And then after I transitioned, I came to him. I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, this is what's going on." Haven't heard from him once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, okay, so it was that you were like beating it out of me all those years, and then whenever it didn't work, you don't want anything to do with me anymore.
Yeah.
And I know, like, my sister will tell me, like, you know, oh well, you know how Dad is. He doesn't like to talk to people. It's like, but we talked for a long time. And I know that he calls y'all at least once every other day and talks for a few hours to you. He won't even call me. So it's one of those, like, again, where I've just kind of created my own family. You know, I was like, hey, if my blood family doesn't want me, I'll make my own family. And I did.
Yeah.
And now we're a huge family. I honestly, I don't know that I would put any of my like hiding this on my mom. I think by the time I'd hidden all this, like my dad had done plenty of the work. I don't really think my mom knew how to handle all the trauma that I had built up from my dad because whenever they got divorced, I was, I think, 7. And I chose to live with my dad because my brother went to live with my dad. And I wanted to be wherever my brother was.
Yeah.
And so she never really contributed to the physical or like, you know, hiding myself trauma. Like she and I have a whole different set of traumas together, I'm sure. I did have an incident after I came out. She and I had a moment where, God, it's a long story if I get into that. We had a moment where we were talking about politics, and I know that she probably says this to her friends. I've never heard it, but she had looked at me. We were talking about, like, you know, Biden had won the presidency for the Democrats, and so we were looking at vice presidents, and I was like, hey, it should be a woman of color. And she was like, it just needs to be a woman. And I was like, no, I think it needs to be a woman of color because now, like, we need to be starting, like, really look into, like, intersectionality. We need to start looking into, like, representation. It matters. It really does. And we kind of got back and forth on it. It got heated. And I remember her looking at me and saying, well, as a woman, I think that blah, 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 blah. And I just thought, like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean as a woman? Because as a woman myself, it seems really weird that you single out the womanhood part since 2 women are talking. And it just kind of fucked with me for a little bit. And so in that moment, even though I was like, you got to go. Like, you're off my porch. You got to go. And I think ever since we've kind of had like a bit of a strained relationship.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that my mom I don't think that she was being like purposely exclusionary or making me feel excluded. And I think it's just a lot of like relearning language. Like, even as a trans person, as a trans woman, a couple weeks ago, I started watching a lot of non-binary creators on TikTok, and it occurred to me that I have the privilege of being a woman. I'm binary. I don't have to introduce myself with my pronouns, generally. But non-binary people do, but they never know if they're allowed to do it safely because where they might be when they say that, someone might react negatively. And it occurs to me, someone had said, I wish I could remember who said it, they said, if other people would introduce themselves with their pronouns, whether they be binary or cisgender or transgender or binary, whatever, it would help us know if we're safe. So I've started doing that. So it is a matter of relearning what we already think we know. And I'm learning every day. So now when I introduce myself, I say, hey, my name is Katelynn. My pronouns are she, they.
Mm.
And anyone listening in the area knows, hey, I'm safe coming out with my pronouns to be non-binary with her. We're good.
Yeah.
So I know that just as I'm learning things, I know that my family is also learning things. And I know that all of the families of the people watching, if you're watching right now and things are shitty, they're learning too. And it is a learning process. And maybe I have been a little bit harsh on my family. Maybe we need to sit down and be like, okay, this meeting is about just us sitting down and coming to terms with, you have a daughter, you have a sister now. Like that's what it is. Because we've never said, I came out and that was it. Like there was never a discussion about anything. It was kind of like, okay, well, we're good. I think maybe we need to sit down and be like, hey, can we all come to an understanding on this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can be a great thing to do in a conversation like that, is to say, hey, I'm doing some self-assessment. You know, it's so we're built to think about ourselves. Like that's how it is. We think of us first, and that's our perspective, and that's what we know. And you know, especially when we come out as trans, there's so much that we're changing about ourselves. We're hyper focused, and so it's really easy to lose the perspective of like, you know, okay, the things I'm saying, the way I'm saying them is affecting you in a way that I'm not perceiving, because like I'm super focused on me right now. And you know, I think starting a conversation and saying, hey, I'm trying to take a look at how I've been in this situation and how I can help you more. So let's open that dialogue.
All right, Diane Sawyer, calm down. God damn, like, what the hell was that? You cut right to the core there. Jeezy. That was good. Shit. You're right. You're really good. I'm gonna have to contact my family, I think. I'm gonna have to contact them. Look, we need to just have this talk. We need to just sit down and raw dog this conversation. Just go. We're gonna have it.
We've talked about your family and how coming out to them was for the most part. Is there anything else about that you wanted to dive into or to bring out?
Now that I'm looking at under a different lens of things you've said, it's my answers are kind of different now. I mean, it really, like, I do feel very like excluded from a lot of things. I don't get invited to family events. Like my brother recently had a birthday. He turned, 45, and the whole family went. I had to find out through my best friend, and it was just kind of like, that hurts, like, even if you think I'm gonna say no, like, it's still, I just came out a while back, and since then the conversation between everyone and myself has been very minimal. So when everyone in the family gets together and does a family event but I'm not invited, it seems very like message loud and clear. And I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or if it is like a subconscious thing, but either way, like, I haven't been my mom had a birthday last year and everyone got invited, even my ex-wife, and I wasn't invited. I found out after she came back. She's like, so why didn't you want to go to your mom's birthday party? And I was like, do what? She goes, that's what this was. It was your mom's birthday party. There was cake, there was candles, everything. And I was just like, what? I mean, this is after I transitioned. So it was kind of like wait, why wasn't I invited to my mom? Why was my ex-wife invited to my mom's birthday party, but I was not invited to my mom's birthday party? I tried to bring that up, and I got met with, well, you did some things that really like hurt me as well. And it turns out that all things I did to hurt these people were like when I was 15 years old. And I thought, that's really shitty for you to hold me accountable for things I did when I was 15 now. Like, I'm fucking 40 at this point, like 25 years later, you're still gonna be like, you did something 25 years ago when your brain wasn't fully developed. And it just seems like, I think we're trying to like, split hairs at this point. You're trying to like find a reason to be mad at me for felt like I was excluded from some stuff. That's honestly why I started my entire TikTok channel, was because I know that I was going through a lot, and I thought, if I just document what I'm going through, maybe other people who are going through the same thing or similar stuff can be like, hey, I'm not alone. Like, and that's been my thing forever. Even before I transitioned, I got retired from the military through medical retirement for major depressive disorder with generalized anxiety. And I always thought, like, it seems weird that we make such a big stigma about depression and about anxiety, about mental illness. And so I've always lived like to be as open about all of me as possible, to make it destigmatized to others, to be like, oh, well, she has depression, it's okay. Like, And she seems okay. She has her moments, but it's not bad. So that kid just kind of carried on once I transitioned, and once things like that happened, I started being like, well, if I'm going to be me and be open about it to try to make it normalized, I have to just be me in every aspect. I want to make sure that everyone else knows that they're not alone. Like if you're neurodivergent, if you're LGBTQ community, if you have mental illness, you know, if you like have PTSD, if there's anything that you have going on, like you're not alone. And so I want to make sure others knew that at least I was there, if nothing else.
Another area, another area that is really daunting for a lot of trans people is work. You know, fear of losing their job and their livelihood and all of that. How did coming out at work go for you? I know you had some wins and some losses.
If we're going off of wins losses, 95% win, 5% microtransaction. Talking about game, microaggression. God. 5% microaggressions, because no one has come out and like given me crap about being trans. As a matter of fact, a lot of people have come and celebrated it with me. Luckily, started my transition right around the time that we were quarantined. So I kind of got to grow into being Katelynn more or less in private. So I kind of have that privilege of like being reintroduced into the world as who I am. But there are like when I first came out, it was at work. We had a work meeting, a team meeting, and I told my boss, I said, Dave, hey, up at that point, like I said, I was very gender fluid. So there were days I was wearing skirts. There was days I was, you know, being very feminine presenting. But I still had like, even then I had like a beard and all this stuff. And I said, Dave, at the end of our team meeting today, is it okay if I talk to everybody about some stuff that's very personal to me? And Dave, one of the greatest bosses I could have ever had, he was like, absolutely. After the meeting, the floor is yours. And so we went in there, we had this big meeting, and I remember I sat at the head of the table because I was like, I'm gonna be dramatic, because I'm a dramatic bitch. I'm So when it's all said and done, I'm like, hey, I got something I got to tell everybody. And it is that I am a woman. And everyone is kind of was like, okay, that's great, right? And it went around the table, everyone did like, oh, well, you know, congratulations, thank you for letting us know, right? And it got to Craig, who is the whitest, straightest, cisgenderist man you have ever met in your entire life. Which is funny I say that, because when it got around to the table, he got to him and he was like, it's about time. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I kind of figured you're a woman this entire time. Once you wore the skirt the first time, I thought, nah, something not up here. You're a woman. And I was like, Craig. And he goes, I just kind of let you go with it. So it's been mostly positive, but there are moments where I work with a guy who is very much bigger than me and could easily physically overpower me in every sense of the pay. Like he would twist my head off my body. He also carries a firearm every day, not into work because that can't carry it in the building, but he carries it to his car, and that's it. Before we got in quarantine, he and I actually we would go out to lunch on a regular basis. But after I came out, he stopped talking to me. And one day I remember getting on the elevator, and it was just me. And he came up to the elevator doors, and they were open. And he goes, I'll catch the next one. And as I got to the elevator and got to the top, because we have 6 floors, I was like, oh, he's going to catch the next one because he doesn't want to be in here with me. He and I kind of had like a meeting in the parking lot situation where he had everything he needed out of his car. He was walking confidently toward the door. But as soon as he saw that I was also walking toward the door, he suddenly like, oh, I need to see if I have things missing in my pockets. And he delayed himself so much that he wouldn't be on the elevator with me. And it's a moment of like, well, good, I don't want you on the elevator with me either. But it's also a very scary moment of like, in Oklahoma, the trans panic defense is still on the table. If for some reason we get in the elevator and he wants to be like, oh, she made a pass at me and I panic and snapped her neck, he might get off completely, but he's probably going to get a reduced sentence because it's Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So it's small microaggressions that kind of lead to like very panicky moments of, you know, am I safe here? But overall, it's been very receptive and very good in my work.
What was your first experience, though, trying to find community as you realized as the pieces started to come together that you were trans?
I joined a group, Transgender in Oklahoma, and I belong to a lot of the groups I belong to are very inclusive in the first place. It's hard to explain growing up in Oklahoma because it's a very red religious state. Like I always tell everyone, like we're the belt buckle of the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very hard to find people who I could also be like, hey, I'm me with you, and you're okay with it, and you're not gonna like hunt me down and kill me or anything. Um, so a lot of that started with a lot of the atheist groups I'm in because I'm an atheist. But so that's kind of where you find out. That's where I first experienced a lot of inclusive community, is because atheists are very in Oklahoma are very outcast, and so they're very like, we'll take anybody.
Okay.
And so from there, I kind of found out a few groups for transgender and gender nonconforming people, and the one I joined was Transgender in Oklahoma, and it served me well for the time. I ran into a lot. It turns out that they let a lot of cis people have a lot of big opinions in that group, and I was like, I can't be part of this. So I started my own group, but ultimately, that was where I kind of found other people, and through that, I found the VA, my local VA, had a transgender group called Transitions. It was huge because I found out that I had a lot of resources available to me for getting on hormones, for getting laser hair treatment, for all of these things that I normally probably would not have been able to afford. But the VA, because as a veteran and retired, I was entitled to these things, and so it's kind of opened doors for things. And I went from there, being like, well, there's not a lot of information out there, and as a trans woman, I have a lot of lived experiences, so that has kind of evolved into like that's how I became my own social media presence of like I want to be there for other people and I want to start my own education of this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our education comes from cis people who are speaking on behalf of us, and I think that it's time that we spoke on behalf of us. Like don't let like the LGBT, like we don't need to let the other letters like speak on our behalf. Someone asked me in a live today, they said, how many genders are there? And I said, infinite. Because at this point, I've had to unpack a lot of the things and unlearn a lot of things. Like even with the instance of like now my pronouns are she, they. It's a very like evolving, we're learning how humans behave. And there's so many genders within non-binary. There's infinite.
What does transition look like for you? This is a sort of a more ethereal question, but what does transition mean to you?
So I know a lot of people say that they're in transition, and I know that means so many things for so many different people, because to me, there's two different ways of looking at transition. One is once you've said, hey, I am not the gender I was given at birth, you've transitioned, you're done. But there's also a physical aspect to that a lot of people like myself also need to finish up before I think that I can say like I'm fully transitioned, if that makes sense. Like I've transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a woman. I came out and said, hey, this is good. But as far as like my like being done, the only thing I'm waiting on is my bottom surgery. My princess wand being turned into a cave. Because there's a lot of trans women, a lot of trans men, a lot of non-binary people who are like, we don't need any kind of modifications to our body. We're good with what we have. So once they say like, hey, I'm good, I'm a different gender, their transition is done. And I think that's kind of how it is with everybody. It's just there's an extra step for some of us, like myself. So to me, it looks like once I get the bottom surgery, I'm done. Like I'm happy with the results that I've gotten from my hormones for upper area. I'm happy with the way my skin is, the way that my body is, other than the princess wand needing to be inverted.
Mm-hmm.
As Miss Walla, trans woman extraordinaire, says, it's going to be the most aggressive tuck I've ever performed. Yeah.
It's an aggressive
Maria
tuck,
Wallace.
and this time it's going to stay in place.
Right. Maria Willis, that's her name. Maria Willis, trans woman extraordinaire. And she one day made a video. She's like, because she has her surgery coming up in December. I'm so excited for her. And when she made the video, she's like, I've been scheduled to perform the most aggressive tuck I will ever perform. And I just remember thinking, that's such a good way to fucking phrase it.
Have your goals for transition shifted as you've moved through it, or was this always where you were focused on ending up?
Honestly, this is all happening faster than I initially imagined it being. I thought it was gonna be like 10 years down the line, like this will all be done. It's been within the span of 2 years. So it has been an evolving, but mostly quicker evolving. Because whereas I thought like, okay, I'll start the hormones, that'll be like a good 3 years, and then after you get that, then I can do this, and I can get like, top surgery stuff, and then once that's done, I get the bottom surgery stuff. So to me, it was like a 10-year plan, and the fact that it happened within 2 years, and I know that that's fast. I know a lot of trans women don't have the privilege I do. I know I'm very privileged as far as like my benefits from the VA and getting a lot of this done, and the job I have and the insurance I'm able to procure. But it did happen much faster than I imagined it happening.
So let's dive into a little bit about GCS. Um, what, where did you start when you realized, okay, I want to move towards GCS? What were your first steps?
So I know through my job, like I have TRICARE through the military for being retired. I will have that forever. But currently, they don't provide coverage for any kind of gender confirmation surgeries of any kind.
Okay.
Although, weirdly enough, they do cover cosmetic surgery for cis women who have self-esteem issues through their diagnosed self-esteem issues to get like top surgery. That's covered, which seems a little unfair to me because
Yeah.
What's the difference? But I knew they weren't going to cover it, so I looked into Blue Shields, which is who I have through my job, and it turns out that in 2020 they changed their policy to cover gender confirmation surgeries. Because initially I started a GoFundMe because I was like, I'm just gonna see if I can get help funding the entire $30,000 worth of surgery. And partway through fundraising, I got to like $1,000, and so I contacted my Blue Cross Blue Shields because I saw a thing on a website, and I contacted them. I said, "Hey, do y'all cover this?" And they said yes, and it just kind of went quickly from there. I ended up. They said, "Who do you want to go to?" And I looked up a bunch of doctors. I said, I just went onto Google. I said, doctors that take Blue Cross Blue Shields of Oklahoma who also perform gender confirmation surgery. Like that was literally my search, and I just came up with this big list of just shit. And I just started cycling through it until I found a doctor that I felt comfortable with, and it turns out it was Dr. Doolin down in Plano, Texas. He is out of the International Institute for Transgender Care, which is stationed inside of the International Institute for Plastic Surgery. But their whole goal is not just the surgical portion of it, but they also provide the mental, the emotional. They provide classes for like more feminine behaviors or helping with vocal training. But their whole goal is they want to become like the central location for where can you go if you're a doctor and you want to know about, I have a transgender patient, what do I do? And I thought that's really great. And so I went with Dr. Doolin. The results I saw online for his work were really great. Now, of course, they provide their own pictures, so they're always going to provide the best ones.
Yeah.
But it turns out, just through serendipity, that on TikTok, I had come across 2 different trans men who had gotten surgery from Dr. Doolin, who had made some videos where they're topless. And I just remember seeing, like, there was no scars. Like, these trans men had top surgery, and there was, like, no visible scar tissue whatsoever. And that was the moment that I thought, he can provide all the great pictures he wants, but seeing 2 actual patients with no scarring was enough for me to be like, okay, I feel like I'm in good hands. So in 7 days, I'm going to go have Dr. Doolin perform my tuck.
What has the emotional journey been for you there? Have you had a lot of fear about that? Have you had any trepidation?
In my lifetime, I have tried to kill myself twice. Aggressively tried to kill myself twice. I got caught both times, luckily, and was able to get help that I needed. So at this point, I know this sounds all edgy and whatever. I don't fear death. Like, death to me is like, well, if it happens, it fucking happens. So the only fear I had going into this was, if they can't perform the surgery, I won't be able to live as me. So I won't be living, which is no different than the fact that I was going to be not living in the first place. So I didn't have a lot of fear because I'd already kind of overcome the fear of not living, if that makes any sense.
In your transition, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome, and how did you get past those?
See, that's a really tough question for me because, like I said, it all kind of happened quickly. And it's mostly because I had the benefit of the VA being as. Actually, okay, the VA itself is not as progressive as you'd think. But Dr. Anna Craycraft, the doctor that we all kind of like, all of us trans women have uh, in the group, she's a very big advocate. She goes to bat for us all the time. So I haven't had to deal with any really big struggles as far as getting what I need, because she has been the one to do all the fighting for me. So I'm very privileged in the fact that I didn't have to do any fighting. And I know there's a lot of trans women out there who don't have the right insurance, who don't have VA care, who don't have the options that I do. So it's kind of hard for me to talk about the struggles I've been through because mine have been minimal comparatively. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who don't have access to the medical care that I do.
What do you feel like you have been able to accomplish because of your transition?
Oh, God damn it. I think my biggest accomplishment has been teaching my kids that you can just be who you need to be. You know, don't be who you are because we tell you who you are. Like, be you because you're you. And that goes for anybody, not just my kids. Like, but especially my kids. God, just be you. That's all the world needs of you. That's all the world needs. And when everyone tells you that you can't be, just be you anyway. That, like, I've learned that you have to be 100% you no matter what. I feel like I've been a good example for my kids.
What's your favorite thing that you've learned through your transition?
Uh oh, to not judge people. Because you never know who's going through a bad day. You never know what they're going through. You don't know what people are going through. And so I find myself being a much more forgiving person because of my transition. Because I realize that there's some days that you're just not going to have a good day. That shit's just not going to go well for you. That you woke up thinking like today's the day. And before you left your driveway, like you found out, nah, today's not the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens to all of us. So who am I to judge somebody else for their like bad behavior when I've done the same thing, I'm sure.
What advice do you have to pass on to young and closeted trans people out there?
There's so many facets to this. This could be a whole college course unto itself, but you have to be you. You can't hide who you are. You have to be you. And I know that it's going to be scary and you're going to get bullied a lot, especially when you're in junior high and high school. And maybe the generation coming now won't experience that. I think that they have a better grasp on the way gender identity and gender is very fluid and very made by society. I think they have a better grasp on gender than we do. But I do know that a lot of the kids out there have parents who are not accepting and who are going to raise kids who are not accepting. So be you, but do it in a safe way. Like, don't ever put yourself in danger. But also, don't cower down because it's going to be hard. Because life is hard. Be you, but not at the expense of your physical health.
Katie, it's been wonderful to have you on and see so much of your family here in the chat.
And I look forward to working with you further. Just in general, not just here, but just in the Transverse and the future of the Transverse. I think that there's something there. I really want to be part of this.
Wonderful.
So I
Yeah.
Let's work together. Let's do this.
Well, we're absolutely excited and look forward to what we're able to accomplish together. This is great. Let's do something big.